Hey everybody, welcome to the first episode of Indie Comics Underground. I'm glad to be here with several other creators inside comics, literature, all kinds of stuff. We've got Bobby Nash with us, Al Nickerson, Mike Barron. Glad to have y'all around. Because this isn't communist China, I just want to open really quick in prayer because we can still do that here in America. God, we thank you for the abilities and the talents that you've given us, for the ability to come together and to talk about it and to encourage others. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
All right. Yeah, we've got a lot of things going on with y'all, and I just want to go ahead and touch down really quick while I'm thinking about it. Isn't that fancy? And this is the Sword of Eden trailer. We'll go ahead and we'll start there. This is the second one. All right, and that is the second Sword of Eden comic that we have. Now, Al, you had said that you are working on the, let me see. Yeah, I got that up there. You are working on the third Sword of Eden installment. Do you want to go ahead and just touch down and tell everybody about that series? I have the first book real quick so they know.
Did you like the first book?
I did like the first book. I think that it's really nice. And I like that you've got the Nosferatu in it, which you said is going to kind of play more of a role here later on in them.
Right, yeah. So the third volume, we see the return of Count Orlok. So volume 3, which I'm working on now, is called The Sword of Eden, Cry Vampire. And yeah, volume 2 came out last May. The Sword of Eden Shinobi, where our heroes go to Japan and they fight a bunch of ninja. And that focuses a lot on a character by the name of Ninja Spider. Yeah, so it's action adventure, superhero stuff with very strong Christian themes in it. And it's the kind of work that I like, and I like superheroes. And yeah, so it's a whole lot of fun. I'm self-publishing the book. I'm writing it and drawing it and lettering it and self-publishing it. Yeah, so it keeps me very busy.
Excellent. And that's Messianic Comics. I've got it up there. Where am I? Up there in the corner. And that's you. Anybody that wants to can click on that link. And I'll be going ahead showing different QR codes here through the video for everybody here. But yeah, that's exciting, exciting stuff. You know, I was watching this week and I saw the Charlie Brown movie. I think I told you about that. It came out in 2015. Hadn't seen it. It's a Peanuts movie. Best Charlie Brown movie I've ever seen. Before that, I liked the one where they went to summer camp and they had the bullies and the rapids and what have you. But so there's a scene in it, and it works for Charlie Brown because if you know Charlie Brown, it's got like the churchy thing going on anyway. The first time that Linus ever puts down the blanket is when he's reading like the narrative of Jesus in the manger and whatnot in the Christmas special, and they still do that Christmas song in it. They've got all these homages to their other stuff. So Charlie Brown, who can never effectively fly a kite, he's trying to get the little redheaded girl, his love interest. I guess everybody's on par with this. I guess you know it's been around for a minute. And so anyway, everything is going wrong. All these kids are there in front of an ice cream truck, and a kite falls down from a tree and it ravels all around him. And he just says, God, for once in my life, I wish that something would go my way. And they start playing the majestic, almost Disney-esque music. And the wind starts blowing and the kite takes off and it goes to pulling him to where he's having to run, and he goes over top of the ice cream truck and kids are starting to get alert. I'm like, that is like one of the best faith-based moments that I've seen in a comic book movie. But it was super cute, and I like Charlie Brown. There's scenes for everybody. I like Pigpen a lot. He got some exposure. There's some girl that didn't care that he doesn't take a bath, which you know we won't go there. And Woodstock and all of them were in it. But no, it was some cool stuff. And I like that you say that you sell your books in Christian bookstores as well, right?
Yeah, well, the first volume was distributed through Diamond and through ChristianBook.com, which was nice. Volume 2, I also sell directly to stores and to readers. So, yeah, going through distributors, I mean, they take a huge chunk out of your dough. So I like working directly to sell to my readers and to sell directly to stores. So especially nowadays, a lot of comic book stores are really suffering. So yeah, dealing with Diamond, I appreciate it. That was nice, but yeah, they take 60% off your cover price. So if I'm going to have the book in stores, I'd rather work with the stores directly. So it's comic book stores, Christian bookstores, and regular mainstream bookstores.
Excellent. Well, I have another trailer here to show. You see that I've constructively put the Baron comics up here, and I want to go ahead and show a trailer that we have for something that Mike is working on. One of the many things that Mike Baron is working on. It's a lot. Here goes.
No sound, Lee.
Can you hear it?
Nope.
I'm not sure how to fix that. I can hear it through my thing.
It's a little low.
The case.
I hear it now. It's coming up.
A Russian Tsar with an airship that rains destruction on unsuspecting cities. With time running out and the world on the brink of war, the heroes must use all their skills and resources to stop a massive conspiracy and prevent global conflict. From Eisner-winning writer Mike Baron and illustrator Richard Bonk, dive into the depths of adventure and unravel the mysteries of the sea with the world's greatest detective in Leviathan. Order now at baroncomics.com.
So that, man, see, that is an awesome trailer. I love that.
Lee, if you don't mind, I'd like to show it again from my side. I think I can get the sound a little better.
How do I do the share thing? Do you know how to do that?
I push share. You take a look.
Oh.
You see it?
Yeah, I clicked it. Have at it.
When a series of shipping disasters points to a mysterious sea monster, Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson leave the comfort of Baker Street and board a freighter where they encounter unexpected betrayal and come face to face with the enigmatic Captain Nemo and his submarine, the Nautilus. As they delve deeper into the case, they uncover a conspiracy involving a Russian Tsar with an airship that rains destruction on unsuspecting cities. With time running out and the world on the brink of war, the heroes must use all their skills and resources to stop a massive conspiracy and prevent global conflict. From Eisner-winning writer Mike Baron and illustrator Richard Bonk, dive into the depths of adventure and unravel the mysteries of the sea with the world's greatest detective in Leviathan. Order now on Indiegogo.
That's
Thanks,
awesome.
sir. I just learned how to do that.
Yeah, so this is like my first time doing any of that. That is an awesome trailer, man. Now, I want to throw this out there at you because there is a He-Man movie that's being made, and this kind of has something to do with, and they're like, it's not going to be anything like you've expected or all that. I think that when you're taking a franchise like Sherlock Holmes or He-Man or Ninja Turtles or whatever that already has a built-in audience, you should care about getting that built-in audience out there. So this is a Sherlock Holmes book that people that love Sherlock Holmes and even new readers would both be able to appreciate, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. That's the way I design every story I do, whether it's a serial or a standalone. Each issue, whether it's 24 pages or 72, is meant to be a complete story with a beginning, a middle, and an end, so that when the reader finishes it, he sets it down and say, that was great.
That's awesome. Did you see what they're doing to Popeye?
No.
Oh man, Popeye Sea of Blood. So they're making another horror movie out of public domain. It's just like who cares about these characters? You know, he's as patriotic as anybody can be. You know, he fought for America in Vietnam. You know, but yeah, they're doing a horror movie out of Popeye. They've got the posters out. I've not seen a trailer. It's probably going to be about as bad as the Winnie the Pooh stuff, which I've just refused to watch because it's like a train wreck movie. It's not even like a good movie. It's just like, let's just make something that's such garbage that people will go see it for the wreck. But so I wrote a Winnie the Pooh book. I did that book Cat and Mouse, and I had Felix the Cat and a bunch of public domain characters. And I mean, I really feel like when you use characters, and this is totally pulling Bobby's chain too, when you use characters, you should honor their canon.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Who is we that is doing that Popeye movie? Because the character's now in the public domain.
He is in the public domain, and I would have to look that up, but it's Popeye Sea of Blood, and I've been seeing them. Bloodydisgusting.com has it up on on a Twitter or whatnot, on a post, and different people do, but they've got like a guy with the big forearms, and he's holding an anchor, and it's like a gory, nasty Popeye movie, and that's not what Popeye. Robin Williams understood what Popeye was. He made the live action Popeye movie, and it was just like it was pulled out of a comic.
Yeah, it sounds weird. I am curious if we're talking about public domain characters. I'm curious to see what's going to happen with Superman in a few years when actually.
Oh man,
comes.
And Batman. It's and they can only use the earlier iterations of them too.
Yeah, but right, because yes, even though like the early Popeye stories are public domain, Popeye itself is a trademarked character, so someone still owns Popeye. So that's where you start getting into those, the stories are public domain. Because I did like we worked on when we did the Zorro book, Zorro. The early stories are all public domain, but to do new stuff, they had to actually license the property from the people that own Zorro, unless they just wanted to retell the original early stories. It gets murky after a while.
Disney's made so many hits though that have been other people's properties, and the way I think most people think of Snow White, they think of it with like the Disney way, but those were stories that were written by people that I'm thoroughly convinced hated children. Have you ever read any of the old fairy tales?
Well,
the Little Mermaid, her feet would bleed when she would like walk and stand, and she dies, and she turns into like sea foam, and then one of the spirits of the air. And it goes into all kinds of depth about that, but they're really violent, tragic stories. There's one called The Death of the Little Red Hen that they covered. I think it was Cracked or Mad Magazine. And at the end of it, it ends and it says, and they were all dead.
Yeah. Most fairy tales are kind of scary. I mean,
Grimm's fairy tales.
Yeah, they're not.
They were grim.
Yes, we've turned, they have been turned into this very kiddified thing in some areas, but if you go back to, the original Grimm fairy tales are dark.
Yeah.
So, but public domain is weird. I've written a few public domain characters, but it's it gets murky after a while. So you have to make sure you really do your research and see, make sure no one still owns the characters, that kind of stuff, because they can. They could put a damper on your enthusiasm for writing something.
Well, yeah, because you could always do a search with the Patent and Trademark Office to see if anybody actually owns the name, or if they're still using the mark.
Right.
Like the problem that DC Comics had with Captain Marvel, right? Because Fawcett owned the character, and then DC bought the character, but in between, Marvel had their own Captain Marvel, so now they can't. And even with the comics, the DC Comics of Captain Marvel, they called it Shazam, and now the name Shazam, which is making it even more confusing and terrible.
Yeah, it gets weird. I just and it's there's people that try ways to get around it, but like you mentioned, Superman.
Yeah,
Superman. They have made all these deals where that will never be just free to anybody.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that Discovery Warner are going to do whatever they can to squash anyone who actually wants to even come close to using that character.
But it
Well,
becomes
they've had
one
so
of the
many close things too, though, to Superman. I
Mhm.
mean, you've had your Brightburn, you've had your
Sure.
Homelander. I can't really think of a lot of like
Well,
good ones because they
well,
always make him a bad guy.
yeah. Well, people are doing their pastiche version. I mean, and that's been done with multiple characters. There are several versions of where people wanted to do Tarzan, so they just create their own version of Tarzan or their own version of this or that or the other. But you can go like, yes, when Superman hits public domain, you can, people can do stuff with those original stories. But if you try to write something new, yeah, the lawyers will be all over you. And the same will be true with Mickey Mouse and, because these corporations have really, they've got a stranglehold on those characters. So they're not going to, and they're still using them. So it's just, yeah, like I said, it can get murky sometimes.
Well, I'll tell you what. I trust Mike Barron's Sherlock Holmes. I know that's
Well,
going to be
Sherlock
a
Holmes,
good one. Yeah,
I do know
yeah,
Sherlock Holmes is definitely
yeah, yeah.
like
Well,
it's one of those, because there are certain characters that just they never, they didn't keep using them, and so the company didn't trademark and
yeah.
Holmes definitely, like Holmes, Dracula,
Mhm.
stuff like that. A lot of those type of things that just they never, the people that did the originals didn't keep them going, and so other people, so they've become that public domain thing.
There's a book called The Holmes Dracula File by Fred Soberhagen, in which the two team up.
Mm.
That's cool. So now
Yeah,
you've got Captain Nemo and Sherlock Holmes in your book, don't you? So it's very steampunk. So it's just before the
It's very
noir.
steampunk.
Yes.
and
So
looking at that trailer, Richard draws that very well. He draws
Oh
that kind
yeah.
of stuff
Oh
very
yeah.
well.
He exploded on this book because he'd been waiting all his life to draw steampunk. He didn't know it until he
Mhm.
got the script, and then wow.
have you ever written a Shadow?
No,
Do you like the character? What do you think about the character?
I haven't. I don't have enough experience with the character to know whether I like him or not. My main exposure to him is with the DC title that Denny O'Neil wrote and Mike Kaluta illustrated, and I was very fond of those. But I didn't get this sense of personality, this hard sense of personality that I get from my favorite characters.
I know this Brazilian artist, and I believe that the Phantom is public domain. He really likes the Phantom. What are your thoughts on him? I've never really been sold on him. I know that he was like a popular character. He's a man that cannot die. He wears a purple suit. Does he live in Africa? Is that the way it works?
Oh,
Well, I have
the
no
Phantom.
idea. Again, the
Yes.
same thing
Yeah.
with the Phantom. I
Yeah.
don't have enough knowledge of the character, but from my perspective, which is too far away to see him clearly, is he just seems rather amorphous to me with the standard heroic impulse to do good and punish evil. Yeah, I don't get a sense of what he eats, what kind of music he likes, what kind of woman he dates, if he's a wit or a half wit, or if he's somber all the time, and those are the things that make a character.
Mhm.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But
So
and obviously, the Phantom doesn't need me because he's still going strong over a half century since he was
Mhm.
created. So
I-
some people must like him. I
has
think it's
Dynamite ever picked him up? Because that seems like something Dynamite would, because
Yeah.
they touch a lot of older characters.
Right now, if memory serves, there's two different publishers that are doing so. Like Moonstone has the license for the Phantom, and then another, is it Mad Cave? I think Mad Cave
Mad Cave's a
has
thing.
like the Defenders of the Earth license, which the Phantom is part of.
I don't know the Defenders of the Earth.
The Defenders of the Earth was this team up of the King Features owned characters. It was Flash Gordon, the
Okay.
Phantom, Mandrake, and Lothar team up to become a team to
I'm
fight
not sure who
Ming the
Lothar is. I know who the other ones are.
Lothar started out as Mandrake's sidekick.
Okay.
Strong man, very powerful kind of character. And the Defenders of the Earth was a cartoon in the 80s, I believe, where, and so they team up to fight Ming and their children. They all each have children that join them as part of the team. And
No, I'm sorry. I was just wondering, is the Phantom still a comic strip?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it is.
Yeah,
Okay.
the comic strip still goes as well. There's a group that posts them on Facebook, so they're still doing new ones of those.
And that's still
Um,
King too, right?
yeah, King Features owns those characters. Yeah.
I like that BC is still a comic strip because I'm all about that. I've always loved BC. So now, Bobby, you've got multiple things going on too, and you said that you're going to be. Are you writing more Domino Lady stuff, or is that a maybe?
No, it's Steph. At present, there are several Domino Ladies that are written that are in the hands of the artist, and I was just approached a couple of days ago to do more. So I just earlier today sent in the plot for a 5-issue miniseries to the publisher for the publisher to approve the plot. And if they approve the plot, then I'll start writing it. If they don't, then I'll come up with another plot.
Now, did you say she's going to team up in any of them? Or any of them?
Yeah, she's teaming up. There's a the publisher has a publisher-owned character called Judgment, who is kind of a pastiche of the Spider. C.J. Henderson had created this character because the publisher had the Spider license, and then when the license went away, they had already been written up several things. So he kind of created a new character that's kind of very Spider-like. And that's Judgment. And so the company owns the character. And so a couple years ago, they contacted me about writing some stuff, because you keep the characters out there. And so I wrote a team up with him and Domino Lady, and they liked it. And so they've invited me back a couple of times to have those two team up on some kind of adventure or whatnot. They're both pulpy style characters, so they're very action heavy. That 40s 50s, because she's kind of set in the late 30s, so we keep them in that era. So it's her running around 30s Hollywood and as the backdrop of her adventures. So we get to play with the things like the Hollywood system and galas and all that kind of
Bobby,
stuff.
did you write 22 novels this year?
I wrote 22 somethings. They weren't all novels.
I'm looking at your Facebook page.
Yeah.
It's
I'm
huge.
thinking, holy shit.
Yeah, I know. I was like, man.
I wrote a lot. Yeah, it's but most of the stuff that came out this year was obviously mostly was written last year. But yeah, I forget how many off the top of my head, but there were 18. There were like 22 published somethings. 2 of them were short films. The rest were either comics, novels, or short stories. So yeah, I have no life. I stay chained to this, this desk right here.
What is 2025 going to look like for you with published stuff? How many things do you think you have coming out? I know that I have 9 things that I'm making myself coming out, and then I've written a bunch of stuff for iShook, so I'm not sure how many they're talking about. And they've also got me going to do a novelization of some comics that I had written. So there's that. But how many things are we talking about?
I know this year's going to be really busy because I'd written some stuff for some other publishers like a few years ago that they have just been holding on to, and all of those reverted to me. So I have 6 novels in the pipeline ready to go. They just need some rewrites and tweaks and all in the production that I'm just going to do myself. I'm going to put out myself. So there's at least 6 novels and a bunch of short stories as of right now, and I cut some audio stuff and some comic stuff. So because I wrote a lot of comics over the last couple of years that are still in the art phase, so they haven't come out yet. So when those do, that'll be a pretty good size number. But it's weird. They all come out in lumps, and people go, "Oh my God, you're so busy!" But I really wrote them over the span of a year. But yeah, so
Now, Mike, man, now don't tell. Just say I'm not going to talk about it if you can't talk about it. Besides the Sherlock Holmes thing, it was talked about in a short video. It was really super short. It didn't give a bunch of detail. Are you doing like a Legion of Doom for the Rippaverse? Is that what it basically is?
That's not the name of the book. And I'm not familiar with the Legion of Doom. The name of the book is Delta Base.
Okay.
And it's about a group of bad guys masquerading as good guys.
So are they anti-villains, anti-heroes, or they're just pretending?
Well, no, they were real one of them is, if you've read Gooding, you've met the leader, Splatterpuss. And there are
So how
3
ma-
others. But
Okay,
I
okay,
can't,
that's what. So it's 4. So they're the not so fantastic 4.
well, they're diverse, and we don't know their backgrounds yet. Although you get a little bit of it in Delta Base, but it's an explosive story. It's one of, when I write a story these days, I wanted to click and pop on every page. And that doesn't mean there's got to be an explosion or violence. Sometimes it's just a quiet moment, but those quiet moments can shine too if you make them original. If you use them for characterization, and your characterization is solid and sometimes surprising. And there's a lot of that in Delta Base, but there's also a lot of action too. And the climax is explosive.
It's
And when I
really
say explosive, I mean it's huge. It's satisfying. There is a lot of action, but it's not just a big picture of an explosion for its own sake. If you've seen one explosion, you've seen them all.
How formidable do you think that they are?
Well,
Are
I
we
don't.
talking like Lex Luthor formidable?
Um, I don't like to compare fictional characters, especially comic book characters, but yes, they're certainly comparable to Lex Luthor.
Okay, that's good stuff. Now, did you saw that video, right, from the John's Long Box where he talked about the Horseman versus the Punisher, which is good advertisement for the Ripperverse, but they did say in it, and I thought it was good, that the Horseman's a brand new, not fleshed out character, so it's not really a fair comparison because you've had the Punisher going at it for years, so of course he's going to win, but you get the honorable mention for the Horseman, which is really the whole thing that you would want. The better thing to have out there would be the Horseman versus Private American. Who would you put your money on?
They don't belong in the same universe. And when you read Private American 2, you're going to see why. I wasn't going to do Private American 2. I had a script written, but it was based on things continuing in this country as they had, which would be straight into the shitter. But with the election of Trump, that changed everything and breathed new life into the character. I'm almost done with script for number 2, and I'm much happier with it. It's very surprising. It's very exciting. I think people are going to love it.
So this is like the Kamalia that laughs.
The what?
The Kamalia that like the Batman that laughs.
Oh, I don't know.
This is like the messed up world where everything just keeps going further. That's what you're saying, right?
Where the original one was, but in the new one, Trump is president.
Okay. All right. Is there going to be a lot of blood?
I don't wallow in blood, but there's certainly a lot of violence.
Okay.
If you like that sort of thing, there's a lot of shooting. And if the artist chooses to show a lot of blood splashing forth, that's his decision.
Okay. Now, was it Walleye? Was that one of the villains in the last one?
Yeah, but he died at the end of
I know. I liked him too, and yeah, but I liked him. He had eyes that looked in different directions, y'all.
Like the Badger.
Yes. So yeah. But, okay, that's good. So Al, what else you got going?
Well,
What are you playing?
well, yeah, I'm working on the Sword of Eden Cry Vampire, so I'm writing it and drawing it, so it takes up a lot of my time. So yeah, I plan to have that published this year. So yeah.
That's excellent. Now, Mike, is the Rippaverse doing what that I've seen other comic book companies do? So, for example, and I read and review a lot of these comic books and everything. It kind of puts me out there a little bit, and it's good stuff. So, Gail Simone's writing the Uncanny X-Men. I just read the 6th one. When you read the 6th one at the tail end of the book, it says to follow this, you're going to read this book. And to follow this, you're going to read this book. So one of them is Uncanny X-Men 7. And then the other thing that it pulls you into is X-Men 8, which some other writer, I don't remember who. I've only read hers because they've got 3 different X-Men series going and there's a team up. But it's like you got to pick up that one. Is the Rippaverse going to be like doing that and having characters interact and exchange? And you know what I mean?
Hopefully.
I mean, that's good stuff. Yeah, and that's what event things are. in comics. It's like you've got to read them all because they're trying to pull you into like the other series.
Well, see, again, that goes against my philosophy, which is that every story must be entertaining in and of itself. And I have nothing against crossovers. I've done a lot of them myself with my own characters and with others, and I try to make them fun. But I don't want to say, well, if you really want to understand this story, you have to buy 3 other titles. That to me is just a marketing gimmick.
Well, it is.
Yeah, it's more like if you liked this, here we're doing it over here too. And if you like this and want to read more, then you go that way. But yeah, I agree. I'm with Mike. I try to at least wrap up the A plot. You get a solid full story. There may be subplots that keep going, but you get your money's worth. You get a whole story, and when you buy a book.
Yeah, I like that too. I just know that people kind of do that for events and everything like
Well, they're
that.
doing it for sales.
Well, yeah. I saw a movie the other night, and I think that there's a lot of people that come down really hard on movies. I didn't think it was that bad. I thought it was kind of normal for a superhero movie. Did you ever see the Green Lantern movie with the same dude that played Deadpool, Ryan Reynolds?
Yep, I saw it.
What'd you think?
At the time, I thought it was okay, I guess. But I no longer watch any of the Marvel or DC movies, so that was kind of a while ago.
Yeah.
But I did see the Superman trailer, which got a lot of buzz, and I thought that was kind of interesting. So
I did too.
Yeah, it's weird, and I really don't like that stuff. I like the art form of comics, and I like genre of superheroes. If these movies get more people to read comics, that's fine. I don't see a whole lot of crossover there. But yeah, I don't think as far as film, like adapting comics into film or television, yeah, I'm not really keen on that, really, in general. I don't think we need Hollywood to validate the art form of comics and sequential art and graphic novels.
Supposedly, they're supposed to be paying artists that, like, that the scenes are mimicking and whatnot. I don't know how that works, like writers and artists and whatnot, because they'd even credited several different books for the Superman thing. I'm not totally familiar with all this stuff. I know that next year they're supposed to have Supergirl, A Woman of Tomorrow out. I know nothing, but that's a book that it's based off of, and so it's going to kind of follow some things like that. I've been looking up. So Marvel's cranking them out right and left. They've got multiple movies coming out every year. DC, they've got like 2 movies or something coming. Next year is the Batman thing and the Supergirl thing. So it's Batman 2, which they've kind of had a back and forth with. It's finished, it's not finished, so nobody really knows what it's going to be. It's the darker, grittier Batman, and I liked it, but they've got big shoes to fill to live up to what the other ones were, and that's always hard when you have something that has a big audience. After the Batman and the Penguin, people are talking about, are they going to have Hush as a villain? I think that it's premature to have like a late, or a later seeming villain in that. I mean, I would like the Mad Hatter or something like that if they're going to do like dark and gritty, because he is.
Well, I'm waiting for the Nexus Badger movie. That'll be fun.
Well, unfortunately, Nexus is owned by Steve Root and me, and Badger is owned by First Comics. Now, we are talking about a Badger TV show right now, but we've talked about it before. And when I say we're talking about it, I mean a producer, a showrunner came to us and said, I want to do a Badger TV show. But nothing came of it before. Keep your fingers crossed. I don't count on these things. That's why I am creating new properties. I realize that they will probably never have the cachet or the spread of the properties I already created, notably Nexus and Badger, because they've been around so long and been read by so many people. But that doesn't bother me. I would love for them to be adapted, but I really write for the reader. And that goes for my novels as well. Right now I'm working on my 11th biker novel. These are pains to the modern noir, Philip Marlowe, Sam Spade, The Continental Op, only transposed to today. And my protagonist is a former motorcycle hoodlum who went to prison and found God in prison and comes out determined to turn his life around. And the stories are very violent at times, but also very satisfying. And I think that the character's unique in that he's not a motor mouth. He's not always popping wise like so many of these characters are. He's very humble, but when he speaks, you listen because he has something to say.
I like that. You know, the thing that I notice about, like, for example, Private American, I don't think that would be as hard to adapt as a lot of stuff. You wouldn't need a bunch of CGI, you know, for that to be a thing, because it's knives and it's guns and it's set in like the modern era and whatnot and stuff like that. Has there ever been a Nexus like television series or something? I've seen little cartoon videos.
That's something Steve Rude did at his own expense. It's
Were they just clips?
3 minutes of animation, and it cost him $17,000.
Oh man, yeah. I know you could do that so much cheaper now with all the computery weirdness.
The dude and I do not agree on the direction Nexus should take, and that's why we're doing separate titles.
Mm-hmm. I saw that you've got Scourge out. You know, and I'm reading that and following that. I've had the first one, and it's very nice. I saw that Steve that he's got 6 of them coming out. It's some planet or Thune or whatever
Thune
wars. Thune, yeah, Thune World, and so he's got some stuff with that and everything. I don't know, man, but I like your stuff. I mean, you created some good stuff.
We have some very exciting Nexus projects in the works. I wish I could tell you who's drawing them, but I can't for the moment because those damn non-disclosure agreements. But their names you will recognize.
If you're like Alex Ross, I'm just gonna run around the room.
No, Alex Ross, he doesn't even draw comics anymore, as far as I know. He just paints.
Yeah. He, man,
and not only that, but his style is not really suited to what I'm doing. As I prefer a certain comic aesthetic, and that's why we fell in love with comics in the first place, because we saw a Steranko page or a Neil Adams page or a Jim Lee page, and you say, wow, look at that style. And those of us who are familiar with comics can name an artist at a glance. When we look at their distinctive art, we know immediately who drew that page. And that's one of the reasons we collect. And that's certainly true of Alex Ross, but he cannot transfer that to black and white and have it colored. His magic lies in the paintings.
So, you know, and I'm curious about what your thoughts are with like aesthetics and all that. So I really like realistic cover artists because you've got some really neat ones, but they kind of got a different vibe. What do you think about like when you have an Adam Hughes and he does like the realistic face, but then he kind of like tones it down majorly, like on the body to where, you know what I mean?
Well, I think Adam is a terrific artist. I love his stuff. I wish he would do interiors, but he doesn't do interiors anymore. There's a lot of great artists no longer do interiors because they, first of all, they're getting more than adequately compensated for covers, and secondly, they don't have the burning desire of a young artist to illustrate the whole comic.
Now, I have his cover for the Uncanny X-Men 6, and I got it because it was an Adam Hughes, and I'm like, oh, it's like he does good art. And so, you know, when I saw that they had the variant covers up, I don't even think they showed what the picture of it was, but just based on his name, I thought this is going to be the cover that I'm going to find the most attractive of these. And it was Rogue. It looks nice.
Of course it does.
Yeah. So what are you excited?
I first discovered him. There's you're talking to indie comics. You could probably find them cheap. He worked on a book with Mike Barr called The Maze Agency, which is absolutely fantastic. Wonderful detective stories. Yeah.
Now, when you go into comic shops, because I go into these ones and I'll do like the meet and greets and the signings and whatnot. The 3 people that you hear of for cover artists the most that people come in there asking for, so much so that this one shop has a section, but then it's not that way with every one of them because there's some of them that people don't care. It's Alex Ross and it's Scotty Young and it's, help me on the last name, Peach. You know what I'm talking about? It starts with an M. Is it Peach or Peaches? She watercolor paints.
Yes, she's Japanese. Is that the same person?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, her stuff is very popular with people. She's not my style. I think it's great that people like it, because there's like different classical painters that, you know, I'm like a Rembrandt guy. I didn't ever really like Picasso, you know, but there's people that really like her stuff a lot. I like Scotty Young's stuff, even though at first I kind of thought, I don't know what to make of this, because it's like Calvin and Hobbes-esque, everything that he does. So it's really good, but it's like that kind of cartoony, but it sells like hotcakes.
Well, I mean, and that's what a cover is supposed to do. I mean, the cover really is just the grab your attention thing. I don't collect like all of the, like, I don't have to go like run down every variant cover to every book. That my collecting comics is more like, ooh, I want to read that, you know. But yeah, and there are several publishers that have made an art out of variant covers, you know, and there's a lot of artists who, you know, like Adam Hughes or other guys who are doing a lot of variant covers. But the reason it keeps going is because people like those and buy them. I mean, it's a good business decision.
Yeah, but are they reading the books though?
Well, that's a very good question. You hope so, but yeah, it's one of those things you just don't know.
I think we know.
Yeah, we hope. Yeah, because I mean, I remember the big, like the '90s, where, you know, there's 12 different copies of like Spider-Man 1, the McFarlane one, and people were buying. I worked in a comic shop, and people were coming in and buying 10, 20 at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And I know they're not, you know, maybe you hope they opened one of them to read it, but you don't know. You just, you just don't know.
I thought it was neat about the bone thing, and he kept going back and printing them, and they said that there were some people that were put off by that, but he was ahead of the curve, and he said, you know, I make these for people to read, and so he'd put them out again so people could catch up to read. And I mean, I thought that was really cool.
Well, I think I think everybody here on this, I mean, we write stuff, but we hope people are going to read it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's, you know, like, I mean, I don't want to speak for everybody else, but I'm pretty sure that, I mean, I write because first and foremost, I want people to read it and enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
And if they get anything out of it beyond that, great. But that's my main focus, is to tell a good story that readers will enjoy. And I think that's what we all like. If you boil it down to its essence, that's our main goal, is just, we want people to read and enjoy this.
That's cool. So what I'm excited about, and I want to go around like the table here with what you're, the series thing that I'm excited about for the comic thing is, I think the Spider-Man Noir with Nicolas Cage playing him, it's coming on Amazon. It's a series. I think that it looks good.
Wait, Cage isn't playing Spider-Man, is
yeah,
he?
he is. Yes, he is Spider-Man Noir. So Spider-Man Noir, he can do all the Spider-Man stuff. He's one of the few characters in the Noir universe, him and Daredevil, that are essentially the same abilities, but he doesn't really swing around so much. He runs around on rooftops, and he has a gun, and he shoots people.
You're wearing he looks like an old pulpy, like he's got the trench coat and the hat,
And the fedora.
I
he
think,
jumps in the
because
30s,
I think
30s.
Nicolas Cage voiced him in the cartoon.
He did.
And I
it's
think
in black and white.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like Sin City type stuff. He knocks somebody into some power lines. You can watch the trailer, but it's coming out on Amazon at some point this year. So it's Spider-Man Noir. I'm looking forward.
Is that live action, or
it is?
It's
live action.
Wow, I didn't actually know that. That's
yeah, and so they've got explosions and all kinds of stuff. But I've never read the series, but I kind of caught up on what they were, listening to some YouTube videos. It's a violent thing. He gets some kind of ancient spider god thing gets broken, and the thing bites him, and the vulture cannibalizes Uncle Ben. He's a circus freak, and it's gritty, pulpy, you know, type stuff. A weird thing that I saw is, in a couple of years, DC is supposed to be making a Swamp Thing movie, and they've had several Swamp Thing iterations. So I don't know how that'll go.
Guys, I got to bow out.
Okay, Mike, man, we love you. We appreciate you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Great.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right.
Al, what are you looking forward to? What are you interested in comics, any medium?
Not a whole lot, to be honest with you.
Sword of Eden 3.
Sword of Eden 3. Everybody should get the Sword of Eden Cry Vampire. Absolutely. What am I looking for? I don't think there's. Oh, there's one. Well, because I don't buy a whole lot of new comics anymore. But Image, they're going to be publishing a series based on Invincible, the comic book,
Yes.
and it's going to feature Battle Beast, and he was a character in the Invincible comic book series, and he was a very popular character. So I'm actually looking forward to that. So I'll certainly pick that up.
He's not in the cartoon, is he? Though the animated.
He's a kind of like a lion-looking alien guy that just wants
Okay, it has shown him.
and fight other people and stuff. Yeah, he was a very popular and violent character in the Invincible comic books. Yeah, so I love Invincible, the comic book series. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. Other than that, yeah, I mean, I don't really buy a whole lot of new stuff. I mean, I really can't buy anything or read anything from Marvel or DC. And yeah, I am looking forward to Mike Barron's new Nexus book, Scourge.
Yeah.
Scourge.
It's the first one's already out. He's got the other one. You can get it like a combined thing on his website. There it's hang on. I got it. Where's it? Baron Comics, and let me stop covering up your face. Okay, but yeah, wait.
Scan Al's face to go to the
yeah, there it is. Baron Comics up in the corner. But yeah. Hey, so I was watching a video, and I don't know if y'all are familiar with this, but you probably are because you both seem like pretty savvy with this. Have you ever heard of a graphic novel series by Will Eisner called A Contract with God trilogy?
It's funny. You mentioned the film noir Spider-Man thing,
Mhm.
and the only thing that I was thinking about was like, just read the Spirit. Read Will Eisner's Spirit. Yeah, I am a huge fan of the work of Will Eisner. I love his Spirit. Yeah, the Contract with God was his first graphic novel, and then he did a series of those up
I
until
believe
he died.
that's the first graphic novel.
Well, that's
Like-
what a lot of people say that, but
There's a back and forth thing. I've heard people say it's the granddaddy of all graphic novels.
Well, I think I would agree with that. But that term graphic novel has been used prior to A Contract with God. And as the story goes, when Will was working on his graphic novels, he will actually do like a really tight blue pencil dummy of whatever graphic novel he was working on. So he spent like 2 years working on A Contract with God, doing the dummy. And then he had a friend who worked at Bantam, who knew Will and also was a fan of the Spirit. So Will called up this guy. I can't remember his last name. His first name was Oscar. And he was talking to him, and because Will was looking for a publisher. And Oscar was like, I'm really busy. So what is this thing all about, this new book you're working on? And Will thought to himself, he said, dummy, don't say it's a comic book. And Will said, it's a graphic novel. And Oscar was like, oh, that sounds great. I've never, heard of a thing like that. Come up, and show it to me. And, Will went to Bantam, and he met with Oscar, and he showed Oscar this dummy that Will was working on. And then Oscar was looking through it, and he's like, this is a comic book. We don't publish this sort of thing. Just go find a smaller publisher. And he did. And, Will found a smaller publisher and published A Contract with God. Yeah, there's like 3 stories. Well, in Contract with God. But yeah, you mentioned Will Eisner. I can talk about Will all night long.
Oh yeah. I mean, he's something, or you wouldn't have the Eisner Awards named after him and everything like that. But yeah, so I mean, right now, I've got the 2 books that I'm trying to push, or the one that I'm trying to push right now, Star Creep. So it's 3 different things. It's an outer space parody, type thing. So I just kind of rip on every outer space series, whatnot, about it. So it's really lowbrow and what have you. My all-in endeavor that'll be out this like fall and winter is Hellfire, and it's set in the 1970s. I like things that, how to say, like, we're trying to make something for a modern audience. I like the opposite of that. I like stuff that like feels antiquated or nostalgic. So if it's like 70s, it's gonna have things in it that, for lack of a better word, are inappropriate to put in things that would be set in these days, the way that people act, the way that they would talk and all that. Tim Allen says that there's things that his parents used to say that you're not allowed to get up and say on television and anymore that were normal. So I mean, I like it to feel like it's the 70s, not like it's trying to judge the 70s by today's standards.
Mm.
You know?
Mhm.
Yeah, I like the look of it. I've got a colorist that's working. I'd showed you the black and whites of that, and I've got him working on it. And and I'm always kind of sitting back like, because you know exactly what I mean in my head. I'm sure when I say I want it to like look like it's from the 19 I want it to look like I brought Jack Kirby back and he put a bunch of like dot art and stuff in there, and you know what I mean. The way that it looks, the colors and what have you. I'm just all about that. I like the whole vibe and the whole feel and everything. And he's done some neat work on some other stuff, but I almost feel like I need to pull up like an Archie comic from like back in the days and be like, use that color palette and just all that kind of stuff, because they looked different than comics look today. A lot of times they didn't really even have so much of a gradient going across in them, but they were done like so well.
Yeah, well, that was because of the printing process back then when they were printing comic books. So very flat, more vibrant colors in the comics, the more saturation. But I saw the line art for some of that, and the line art, the inking that you showed me, the black and white stuff, I like that. That was gorgeous. And
He's
the story
awesome.
too. Yeah. I like that stuff. That was really good.
So go ahead. Did you have anything to add?
I liked it.
Okay,
No,
all right.
stuff.
All
Yeah,
right.
the inking
Yeah.
was really good. The storytelling was really good. Yeah, so I thought that was really sharp. But that stuff that I saw in black and white, that will be colored. That's what you're.
That's the plan. So here's the deal with Hellfire and everything. Let's just say in the second book, Hellfire, he's resurrected from the dead. He was murdered. He was burnt to death amidst other stuff. I don't know that I should get into like all the full on details, but he's going after the people that are responsible for his murder. He has like incendiary abilities, and he uses like red flames. So it's like, so I've got to have that. There's a scene in the second one, because I think to myself, if somebody has incendiary powers, what would be cool to happen? And so there's a bad guy that he chases into he stalks him into a fireworks store. And so he can make anything, in a fairly close radius, get really hot or burn up like it's been hit with a Molotov cocktail. So he's got fireworks going all off, like all through the store, like what like a WWE person would want to walk down the aisle to. Yeah, he's immune to being burnt. He's already burned to death and come back. So he's got them. You know how fireworks would be going; they'd be twirling through the air and the sparkler things and all that. So I mean, that's going to have to be colored in a way that all the yellows and the oranges and whatnot that show the absolute terror of what people would be feeling, because there's people that are running out of there. Nobody gets got but the bad guy, incidentally, in this. But yeah, there's fires in a couple different places through the book. He goes after a guy in a hospital, and it does some extensive collateral damage. Burning somebody and in an ICU type area, because fire spreads. What else? I have him. There's a young woman whose life was wrecked, and I don't want to go into a big story and all that with that, but it kind of gets a little taxi driver, and he goes after a pimp and some abusive John. And he puts the fear of the Lord into them. They not all make it, but he goes in to save the girl. Different types of stuff like that. But he can go into like a phantasmic astral type form, where you can only see him if it's in the pitch dark, and then he's like blacker than black, so kind of like shadow person-esque and everything. In like the pitch black, like the movie Lights Out. I don't know if any of y'all know that horror movie. If you watch the trailer, you would get the gist. The person flips the lights out and they see the figure, they turn them on and nothing's there. That's the way that it is when he's in his invisible mode. But he can pass through things can go through him, and he can puppeteer some people. But it's all about him going after and getting them, almost kind of like Crow-esque with the healing factor.
Yeah.
But it drains him, and he has to rest. He has to sleep to recharge.
Mm-hmm.
So that's his deal, basically. So It's kind of, if you think, people told me they're like, you would like Spectre, and I went to looking up Spectre stuff, and it's like there's some writers that like have overpowered him so much
Mhm.
that just like, I don't like characters that are overpowered that much. I like characters a lot of times that don't have powers, that things are more difficult for them. It's like you've got what, Red Hood or Robin, or Nightwing, whichever one. And I read something or saw it on the internet about how he had like ripped a submarine like hatch or something, just like tore steel apart. And it's like, how do you account for that? Because there should be a human element to where you fail, because even though your mind is there and you get the mind to do it, your body will not do something that's so far, because you're not Superman.
I think that, especially when you're doing like action adventure stories or stories that have a lot of drama, yeah, if you have a character that's so powerful, um, I don't know if your audience is going to be as invested in that story if they think the character is going to be okay anyway. If you put a character in a situation where the audience is really concerned about their safety or what's going to happen next, yeah, then you're going to hook the character. But if you're going to do a story where the character is like so powerful that whatever threat he faces or she faces, they're always going to win. I'm like, how interesting is that?
I don't think it is. And I think that was part of the success to the Walking Dead series, which is way less vile than the comic, by the way. But the Walking Dead series, there was a fragility with people. Anybody could die,
Yeah.
and they were pushing that. You got a cup. You think you care about them. They built this stuff up. You think it's going to be like a soap opera or a normal show where this character's become important enough that nothing's going to happen to them, and then bam, they get shot in the head. I mean, just like nothing, and they go down. And I think that makes you that much more interested that something can happen, that it can go that off the rails, and they don't care to kill a main character,
Or they,
or
because you're
maim them or whatever.
talking about
Yeah.
Robert too. I'm sorry, Bobby.
As I say, but I mean, and it doesn't always have to be that they can die. I mean, Superman is conceivably one of the strongest characters in comics, and he's been going strong for 80 years. And I mean, we were talking earlier, there's a new movie coming out. I mean, it all depends on the character and how they deal with those things. So you can have powerful characters that are still have a vulnerability. You know, Superman's vulnerabilities are not power based. It's more the person. You know, Superman is the suit that Clark Kent puts on to go save the world. Then when he comes home, he's still Clark. Which is kind of the opposite of Batman. Whereas
Right.
Batman puts on the Bruce Wayne costume.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
That kind of. So those are the things that. So you can even have those super strong characters, as long as it's the character of them.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I'm
People
sorry.
go different ways with that, though. What did you all think of Man of Steel? Did you like it or did you dislike it?
I didn't care for Man of Steel. The story, it didn't grab me. I think Henry Cavill would make an awesome Superman.
Mhm.
I don't feel that Henry Cavill has been allowed to play Superman because the character in those movies does not feel like any Superman I've ever read in my life.
I think there's a couple things. And Bobby, you were mentioning about Superman. I think a lot of that vulnerability that we saw in the character of Superman in recent decades, I think I attribute a lot of what John Byrne had done with the character to make it more fallible, maybe. And also, we were talking about the new Superman trailer, and the first thing we see, he's like in the snow, and he's all bloody and stuff. So,
Yeah.
there's in peril. As far as Man of Steel goes, I did see that movie. I didn't like it that much. I like Christopher Reeve. Christopher Reeve as Superman
He was awesome.
was awesome. When you're watching Christopher Reeve as Superman, that Superman enjoys doing what he's doing. Like he's a fun guy. He loves being Superman. And there's a lot of emotion with that character. I didn't get that feeling with any of the other Supermans, other than maybe in
Return.
Yeah, because that was pretty much the same sort of character.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah,
he even favored Christopher Reeve.
Right.
That's why
I
they
just-
cast.
well, they used
Well, and
the stick and
Yeah, because it was a sequel to Superman 2, basically. That it was
Yeah.
so they actually cast a guy that could look similar.
Yeah,
and,
Brandon Routh. I actually
yeah,
really
so
but there's a couple things I didn't like about that movie.
Yeah,
But yeah,
there are some story elements to that movie that what were they thinking?
right,
But
exactly.
yeah, you know,
Yeah, it's weird because like you got Smallville and then you got the Man of Steel version. And Smallville, when they really focus on Clark Kent as like, more of a human being raised in Kansas, I find that more interesting. Because Man of Steel, they really focused a lot on his Kryptonian heritage, and there was a scene like right before he gets the costume in Man of Steel where the Jor-El hologram is talking to Clark Kent, Superman, saying that you got to take over this world and like lead everybody, and that's creepy. That's like really weird. Like, why were we going to follow some alien? So I like it when they focus more on Clark Kent, being raised in Kansas, more of like of an American and less like a Kryptonian, and I find the character a lot more interesting.
yeah, I think one of the smartest things they did in Smallville was making, because we knew the characters were alive, because again, that was kind of the Byrne reboot thing, was his parents still being alive. But I think one of the best things Smallville did was not making his parents old,
Mm.
because every iteration we'd ever seen of Superman, his
Hmm.
parents were old.
Hmm.
And so seeing them in their 40s made them seem more real
Right.
to me. And I thought it added some nice elements to stories where you could see his parents getting into things.
Right.
And I thought that was great. And I thought the actor, certainly the father son dynamic on that show,
Fantastic.
when those two actors were together doing stuff, was just
Yeah.
absolutely beautiful. I thought they handled that very well.
I really liked Green Arrow on that show. I thought that
Mhm.
he did there was a lot of character. The first season of that show was absolutely perfect. My favorite moment that was like the definitive, I felt like, for the first season, and it went downhill eventually. I think it like 3 seasons you could say were pretty solid. Was the Jonathan Taylor Thomas, and he steals his powers, and he says, "What would you do if you had powers like this?" And he says, "I would stop people like you," because that's who he is.
Mhm.
I it, I hated the ending, man. Now this new thing that they have where they totally messed with the way that like the story goes in so many ways with Superman and Lois. They ended it really nicely, and I like that. They race
That
swapped characters, they gender swapped
yeah.
characters, they did all kinds of different stuff, but they were intriguing episodes, and it was good storytelling. Even though if you know the continuity of it, you're like Automatopedia isn't a woman, and on and on and on, but nonetheless they made a compelling story. The family dynamic, I think, was the strongest
Yeah.
thing in it. I liked Bizarro in it.
They were also able to do something that we've never had happen before. We got to see Superman live out his life and die of natural causes. Sorry, spoiler to anybody, but we got to
It's
see
been a
the end.
while.
We got to see the end of his life,
Mhm.
not just Superman dies and then we have to come back at the end of this. We got to see, and we've never seen that before.
That was
Because
nice.
the comics are always going to keep going. The movies don't, movies are always planning sequels. So knowing that it was coming to an end, they were able to write it to where we could see, in that last 15 minutes of that last episode where we go through the last 30 years of his life. Pretty quick, but it was very touching to see Clark Kent get his happy ending.
And they had crypto. They had a little crypto
Yep.
moment there towards the end. I was nervous about it when they were putting Doomsday in there, and I loved Death of Superman, but it's like, why are you putting Doomsday?
But
That's like Spider-Man 3 with Venom.
but they finally gave us a Doomsday that looked like Doomsday.
Oh, he did. He totally did.
It's the first time he looked like the guy from the comics. Like none of the other movies, he's looked. It's always been a little different.
Did you
But
watch the Batman versus Superman?
I did.
Man of Steel was so much better than Batman versus Superman. It didn't even feel like it was the same. It was like a
Yeah.
weird B movie. It was crazy.
Yeah. Well, it felt like they were trying to rush to get to that. Like with Marvel, they want to get to that. They want to get to the Avengers, so we're rushing to get there. And it don't
The
feel like they earned.
Justice League.
Well,
They
it don't
were,
feel like
yeah.
they earned the the animosity and the solutions. It seemed like it was just, oh, we'll just throw this stuff together, and it didn't work. But I will say, there's one scene in that movie when I was in the theater. I do remember when Wonder Woman shows up. That there was this, the theater I was in exploded, and the row behind me were these 4 or 5 teenage girls that were there together. And you know what? Their excitement was contagious over seeing Wonder Woman show up. And I thought that was, and I've gotten that in a few other movies where I've seen characters that I grew up loving show up, you know. Those have been moments for me because, you know, there was a long period of time where, yeah, you didn't expect to get a good comic book movie. And if you did, it was going to be Superman, Batman, or Spider-Man. That was pretty much it.
Let me just go ahead and throw this out here because I'm curious because you all might know something that I don't know, so I probably should just ask. So for my Hellfire series, I was thinking about doing a variant cover. This is an am I allowed to do this? Because I think that you're allowed to have like characters, if it is on a cover, they're not in the book, like for parody purposes. Could I have Bill Bixby, you know, Dr. Banner, Incredible Hulk on the cover with Hellfire, since they both exist in the 1970s, even though one is like Marvel Universe. My favorite Incredible Hulk franchise, by the way. I love the series.
Until Bill Bixby's family sends you a cease and desist for using his likeness.
Is that the way that that goes?
That's probably what would happen. I don't know that, but that's probably what would happen.
So I mean, like same thing with like Linda Carter or whoever again, because we're talking about that specific person. She was also 70s.
Someone would probably send you a cease and desist for using their likeness. That's a guess. That's a guess on my part. I could be completely wrong, but yeah, it's just like with the trademark thing, and with likeness. There are people whose sole job it is to protect Linda Carter's likeness. You know, which is what stops people from just slapping Linda Carter on everything.
Al, do you know anything about it, Al?
Well, first of all, you're saying so you don't have because the Sword of Eden Shinobi, I do have a variant cover. I have a Trump 2024 variant cover for that graphic novel.
Okay.
So I like variant covers in that regard. So variant covers in general, you're okay with doing something like that. You're just more concerned about the copyright of.
I'm saying, are you allowed to do that?
I will. Well, I've kind of
specifically that. What I mean,
I've done stuff like that before. I've never done it on a cover before. I think Bobby's right. I think, you know, if it gets some notice, yeah, you'll probably get a cease and desist letter from, you know, Disney saying you probably ought not to do that, especially if you do it on a cover. They get a little bit more concerned about copyright infringement, especially when you put it on a cover of a comic.
Yeah, and it could be numbers of people. Like if you're putting it could be Bill Bixby's family. It could be Marvel. It could be Disney. It could be Kenneth Johnson, who created that TV version. It could be, you could get that cease and desist from any or all of them because they all have some kind of either ownership or to some segments of it.
Because, the first graphic novel out of the Sword of Eden series, there's a funeral scene at the end of the book, and there's a panel where you see all the people in the audience in the church building. So I put a lot of different sort of superhero comic book characters.
Yeah,
that scene.
And that's usually okay. Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing is that at the time, a very close friend of mine, he draws the Dennis the Menace comic strip, the Sunday strip. So we were having lunch, and I'm like, "Hey, can you draw Dennis the Menace's parents in this scene? You know, at this funeral scene?" So, and he did. So he drew, you know, Dennis's mom and dad, and they're in that panel, and he drew it, so it's in the very much of that art style, and people notice it. You know, they know
that's more of an Easter egg thing. Now, if you'd have had them having dialogue.
Yeah, so right,
then it becomes a thing. But yeah, you're sticking them in. It's kind of like when the Star Trek movie had R2-D2 in like a small scene, you know. Yeah, it's a little Easter egg stuff, which that happens all the time.
I didn't even know that. Are you talking about the original Star Trek?
small, and it happens.
and yeah, but the Terry Austin, the inker,
Hmm.
is famous for
Hmm.
drawing Popeye in
Yep.
crowd scenes.
Yep.
So if you look at, there's a lot of X-Men's where Popeye is in crowd scenes.
He has.
It's
Yeah.
just a little Easter egg thing. Nobody cares. And that's
Correct.
fine. But
So
yeah,
that.
if you start giving them dialogue and having them interact, and it's it's
So,
more.
so covers are an issue.
I
Cover.
would,
Yeah. I think that
yeah,
falls in the same category as what Bobby is
yeah.
talking about.
Because I do know that there's certain comics to where they'll have like a different character on the cover. I don't know what permissions or whatnot that they've got.
Right.
Well, here's what I would suggest: if you see that, reach out to the people that did that and just ask them, because
Yeah.
sometimes, and it depends on what the character is. If it's if it's an indie book, like say if you wanted to do that and you wanted to use one of my covers or one of my characters that I own, and you just said, "Hey Bobby, can I put Lance Starr on the cover?" Sure, go ahead. That's the end of it. But if it's like that's an easier permission than going and saying,
It was
"I
the
want to put
CBS.
Superman."
I think it was
Yeah,
CBS.
I
Yeah.
want to put Bill Bixby as Dr. David Banner on this cover. That becomes a different thing, because the people
Yeah.
who have some kind of ownership of that are going to be like, no, 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 no.
And are you talking about Dr. Banner only, or are you talking about the Hulk as
I was thinking Dr. Banner. I mean, there could be a transformation with him and Lou Ferrigno, but I was thinking of David, and with the eyes glowing.
Yeah, I
you
think
know.
on that. Also in the Sword of Eden graphic novel, the first volume, I actually mentioned the Hulk in the story, but you don't see the characters.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And those things are kind of allowed. I mean, it's like, yeah,
Right.
it's like, it's a pop culture reference.
Right. And
Or
talking about,
like, and you were talking about doing the political cover.
Mhm.
That's a little different, because that is a
Public figure.
public figure.
Mhm.
That same way you could put George Washington or Abraham Lincoln or characters like that, because they are public figures.
Exactly.
You're a little okay. That's a bit different than just going, I like this celebrity, I want to put them on the cover. That
Yeah.
gets, because there is someone, they pay people to keep them safe, to keep their image, their likeness safe. Just like
So
publishers do. Like, imagine if, say, 5 years down the road, you go into a comic shop and somebody's drawing your character on their cover without talking to you. How would that make you feel?
Exactly.
So is there anything that's coming up? Because I asked what you're excited about, that it's just like,
Uh,
no,
yeah,
no.
I am still a fan. I'm a fan of not all of them. I don't watch them all, but the ones I like, I still enjoy.
No.
I grew up a Marvel kid, so I still check out the Marvel shows and movies when they happen. I absolutely adored Deadpool and Wolverine. It's silly and goofy, but I enjoyed it.
It was what it was supposed to be. I heard
Exactly.
they
Yes.
fought like dogs to get that made
They
that
they
way. But
yeah, and there was the only agenda was, the fans want this, we're
yeah,
going to give it to them. And but you know what? That was fine. That's what I wanted from that movie.
no,
I wasn't expecting high art. I was surprised that the story was as poignant
it was
in places.
a fun movie.
Yeah.
The only criticism that somebody could bring, which I think it's a good thing that it was the way that it was, is Cassandra Nova's not supposed to be that good looking. She's supposed to be like
Well,
much older
it's
than that
still a
woman.
Hollywood movie.
Yeah.
That's where like, Hollywood ugly is like a supermodel wearing glasses and bad hair. Yeah. But they told the story that they needed to tell, and it was fun, and they were giving us what we wanted, and so I still enjoy that. I'm a big fan of the Captain America series, so I'm very excited for the new one. I hate the fact that the trailers spoil
The
the big
Falcon.
surprise of who the Red Hulk is.
Yeah.
I kind of hate that people aren't going to be surprised, because if you don't read the comics, you're not going to know who Red Hulk is.
Harrison Ford.
Yeah, but you do now because it's in
Yeah.
the freaking trailer.
Yeah, and you saw this video.
Yes, and you saw this video.
Yes.
But I still enjoy those. I enjoy the characters. There's a lot of characters that have shown up in these movies that the little kid that still lives inside of me never expected to see
Yeah,
certain characters come to life this way.
they've
And
got Thunderbolts coming out. Have
yeah,
you seen
and
that?
but I saw the trailer. Yeah, and so but for me the part is like, and it's the really little ones, like, oh my god, it's that character. It's like this character that nobody, like, most people have no idea who that character is, but I'm like giddy because I read a book that they were in, as a kid, and I was like, I never expected to see Angar the Screamer, on TV or that kind of stuff.
Had you ever read Creature Commandos before the series?
I have. I read some of the older ones, which are totally different characters.
Okay.
But I'm enjoying the show. The show was fun.
The show is way cleaner than I thought it was going to be, because they
Yeah.
put things out like Harley Quinn and all that are really like R-rated, and this is more PG-13, which good.
Yeah.
They put things out that you really think, I mean, what are they? Are they just trying to see how much they can get away with? That it's
Well,
like
I
so
mean,
bad that you want to turn it off.
because
I
of
mean,
where
you just-
because of where they're shown on HBO, you can do all that. And so sometimes it's just like, we can do that, so let's do it. I mean, certainly, Wolverine and Deadpool and Wolverine is on Disney Plus, and it's got like,
Oh yeah, I know.
118 F-bombs in it or something like that.
I know, but there's a lot of
It's-
things that you think it doesn't really seem to fit the medium
Mhm.
so well, particularly if it's animated. There's some point that it's just like,
Yeah.
what
Now I don't watch the Harley Quinn show, so I can't
yeah.
do it, but I do
I
understand that it is.
clicked on the first episode, and there's like 7 or 8 F-bombs, like bam,
But
and it's like, man.
yeah, but it's one of those things. It's like, language doesn't bother me. I mean, because I don't have children, so I'm not worried about that.
Well, you know what I mean, though, how
But
that would be comparatively
Sure,
different to
but
the
right,
the
but
Deadpool Wolverine.
sure, but I watch the ones that seem interesting to me. We talked about the Batman, the newest Batman movie,
Mhm.
and I thought it was okay. I didn't love it, but I thought it was okay.
It was
But
kind of like Seven. A lot of it was grittier, like criminal bads.
but right, but because of we got that movie, we got the Penguin show,
Yes,
which is absolutely fantastic.
it is. It is.
So
I thought he was the best Penguin I've ever seen, because he looks scary, and those characters are supposed to be scary. The Riddler, you'd probably have to be around him and listen to him for a few minutes before you got the Penguin's a stone cold mobster. The Joker's an insane lunatic. They're people that you would be frightened by immediately. There's some, like the Riddler, that it would take a little bit. You'd have to get in a conversation to him and be like, "He's nuts. Get me out of here."
Yeah, and I thought just the way they told that story was fantastic. Yeah, they didn't transform the Penguin to look like Colin Farrell. They made Colin Farrell look like the Penguin.
I like
And I
Sophia Falcone in it. I thought that was nice. I like
Fantastic.
the whole mob thing. I thought
Yeah.
that she did a wonderful job. So they have him taking over the power
Yeah.
of the city and getting in with the politics, which is what he is. He's like a corrupt politician.
Well, yeah, he's a
character anyway.
planner. I mean, the Penguin at his best is a planner.
And he's
not.
clean, or he comes off clean.
Yeah,
even though he's not.
he's making plans within plans, whereas unlike the Joker, who just does stuff, the Joker doesn't think things
He's
out.
an
The
anarchist,
Joker's very impulsive, and so I like that they play that up, and they've given us so many over the years. The Penguin is probably the Batman villain that's been given so many unique versions. Like, there's nothing in this new one that's similar to the Danny DeVito version, for example. They're almost completely different characters, but at the core, they're still the same.
That was a horrible version, and
Yeah,
and I was so young. And you think that's how the Penguin's supposed to be? Even though I
Yeah.
saw the Batman '66 with Adam West, I grew up watching that too.
Mhm.
So
Now,
it
see,
was.
for me, yeah. See, I love Burgess Meredith as the Penguin. That was when I was a kid, catching those reruns of those where they would play after school and whatnot. and I just thought Burgess Meredith was fantastically fun as the Penguin. And I hadn't read any Batman comics when I saw those, so it surprised me a little when I get to the comics and realize, oh, he's not quite that silly in the books.
Did either of y'all appreciate Vincent Price in that? Egghead?
Egghead, yes.
Yes, yeah. I like Vincent Price anyway.
You know what?
He played some really lame roles, on
that
purpose.
that was a fun show, and it's weird because I hear people all the time go, "Oh, it ruined Batman, made Batman silly." But at the time, the Batman comics were silly. It was weird because at that particular time in the 60s, it was not uncommon to see Batman on other planets fighting aliens and Superman fighting mobsters. And so when the Batman show came on, it was very indicative of what was in the comics at the time. Batman wasn't that super dark and gritty. He had been in the past, but he was not at that time. And then he would go on in the 70s to become that dark, gritty character again.
Al, do you feel like there are any characters that have been solid and true and not had all kinds of iterations? Like it is this thing. I mean, outside of like Charlie Brown.
Well, a couple of things I wanted to point out. So in 1954, there were the Senate hearings on comics, and it almost actually got rid of comics. So in the 1950s, superhero comics weren't even really that popular anymore. So the stuff that DC was putting out with those characters and because of the hearings and stuff, they were really toned down. They weren't really violent. They were just a lot of goofy stories. And in the 1960s with the Batman TV show, that's what a lot of people thought Batman really was. So you had the Tim Burton Batman movie come out in 1989, and I think it blew a lot of people's heads because this is who Batman really is, and he's the TV version. And a lot of that has to do with two people. I think Neil Adams, in the late 60s, early 70s with his version of Batman, and also Frank Miller. And it really changed the character a lot.
Yeah. I remember when the Tim Burton movie was about to come out, and they were doing all these interviews with people. And I remember, I think it was Good Morning America or one of those big shows like that, got the villains from the Adam West movie shows to watch the movie and then interviewed all of them. And I remember that they were all very down on the Tim Burton movie because this is no longer a movie for kids.
Sure.
And they had always treated the 60s as this is, this is for kids. We want kids to enjoy this. Right. And so they nuanced a lot of stuff. Like there is stuff in those old 60s ones that as a kid meant one thing. And then I watched them with the eye and ear of an adult and I realized, oh, okay, there's a joke there I didn't get when I was 6. But yeah, so there's a lot of folks, and I agree. I agree with you that Neil Adams and Frank Miller, changed a lot. And Denny O'Neil, I'll give Denny because Denny wrote those Neil Adams issues. Those three probably are more responsible for getting us to the Dark Knight,
or that used to be.
Yeah.
Michael Keaton was amazing in The Flash. I liked the Flash movie. How they had that version of the version of Batman that I knew, and it's like that was so cool that they had him there. And I was hoping, and a lot of people were hoping that they were going to do a Batman Beyond with Michael Keaton.
Well,
and,
I think
have
that
Terry
was
McGinnis.
I think that was the plan, but when the Flash did not do well, and then now they've basically started everything over. But Keaton is fantastic, and I think part of what made Keaton work in that role in 89, because Keaton was a comedian. He did comedies. He didn't do stuff like this. But at no point when I'm watching this movie and you see Bruce Wayne, like when we're introduced to Bruce Wayne at the party, at no point do you ever look at him and go, that guy could be Batman. Because he played it well enough to be. There's actually a great line in the second one where at the end they're facing off against Max Schreck and the Penguin and the Catwoman, they're all there, and he's trying to stop Catwoman from murdering this guy. So he rips off, because she knows who he is already, but he rips it off so he can connect with her. And the villain, played by Christopher Walken, goes, "Bruce Wayne, why are you dressed as Batman?" It was never, because he played it in a way where at no point did you ever go, "Holy crap, Bruce Wayne is Batman." It's like, no, why are you dressed as Batman? And I thought that was great, because future movies, you didn't always get that. Val Kilmer, you see him as Bruce Wayne, that could be Batman. Christian Bale, you see him as Bruce Wayne, yeah, that guy could be Batman. But I thought Keaton brought that to it, that duality of the characters, kind of like Kevin Conroy did voice-wise in the cartoon, because Bruce Wayne and Batman sounded nothing alike.
You put the gruffness in it.
Yeah.
Well, that sort of reminds me of when we talked about the Christopher Reeve Superman. So there's that scene in the Superman movie where Christopher Reeve is Superman. He flies off, and then he runs around set, and he comes into the front door of Lois Lane's apartment, and he's dressed as Clark Kent. And she goes off, and I guess she's getting changed or something. And you see Christopher Reeve. He's Clark Kent. He takes off his glasses. He's about to tell
Stands
Lois
up. Yeah.
that he's Superman, and he changes. It was just like amazing. And then he puts the glasses on, and he's like all nerdy again.
Yeah, because
they talked about that in the documentary. Did you all watch the documentary?
I haven't yet. It's on my.
It like teared me up. I mean, it's like it's that kind of documentary. It's long, but it's like a tearjerker. It really goes through his life and everything that happened. And he had a horrible childhood, and then falling off the horse, and his dad. He wasn't Father of the Year. I'll say that it's a lot of stuff. His wife really stuck by him, but it's a full thing about his life. It is a outstanding documentary, but it's like a tearjerker type thing. It's really touching.
Well, he was our first live action Superman that looked different as Clark Kent. Like the George Reeve one from that guy, he didn't really change much. He put on, because he still looked like a tough guy, but the way that Christopher Reeve played, Clark to Superman and back, and like you said, that scene is incredible. And that goes a long way, because we've heard that for years. How can you just put on glasses and nobody knows it's him? Because it's more than that. It's mannerisms. He's kind of walks with a bit of a stoop, and I see a little bit of that in the trailer for the new one. When I see Clark Kent walking, I do like the fact that Clark's taller than everybody in that street scene. But you see Clark Kent coming, and I realize, nobody would look at him and just automatically think that's that guy.
So Guy Gardner in it.
I love Nathan Fillion, so I'm okay. I
think it's cool that they finally have Guy Gardner in something, because they never show that Green Lantern. I just know that there's a lot of people that hate Guy Gardner's guts.
Well, Guy Gardner's that's by design. He's a jerk. He is not written to be likable.
When Keith Giffen started the Justice League, and he and Steve Englehart and Green Lantern, and Joe Staton, they really changed the character quite a bit.
He wasn't as big a jerk before.
Right, yeah. So I was a huge fan of Guy Gardner in the Justice League and the Green Lantern Corps at the time. When I was writing for Back Issue Magazine in the early 2000s, there was an issue dedicated to characters that were green. So a lot of Green Lantern articles and stuff. So my article was on Guy Gardner and why I think that Guy Gardner was the one true Green Lantern. Because I always loved the character. So I had the opportunity to write about a character I enjoyed. And that's really a lot of why I was writing for Back Issue Magazine. I was able to write about comics and characters and stories that I actually really enjoyed. But for the Guy Gardner article, I was able to interview Joe Staton for the article, and Steve Englehart, and a couple of the other guys. And that was a whole lot of fun. And just showing how much I really did like the character. In regards to Guy Gardner being the new Superman film, I kind of liked it. So
is this our first live action Guy Gardner?
I believe
Yeah,
so.
I think so. I
I
think
want to say
so.
so.
And
Yeah.
Mr. Terrific. I
Yeah.
think it had him in some like some series type
Well,
stuff.
Mr. Terrific was in Arrow.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, but yeah, but I don't think we've had. Yeah, I think this is our first.
So they've got
Lot.
him. They've got Hawk Girl.
Yeah,
Is the dude's name Metamorpho? Is that who the?
Metamorpho. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now we've had Hawk Girl live action before. I don't think we've had a Metamorpho
Hmm.
live action before.
Or Crypto, except for the
Yeah,
series.
no Crypto wearing the cape and all that. This is the
Yeah.
first time we've had that live action.
You
But
like the dog
I'm
for Crypto?
excited. I'm excited for the movie. I'm excited to see Guy Gardner and see what they're going to do.
I was
But I
glad that they
also,
had his hair right. He's
yeah,
supposed to have the bowl cut, and
yeah,
people went wild about that. It's like people want to say they want comic book accurate, and I mean I love the Cowboy Bebop like live action series because I like the anime. Um, it it felt like Cowboy Bebop. They looked like them, they acted like them, they sounded like them. The stories were enough like them. They had the music going on like them. They had Ed at the last scene, and the kid was like they were pulled out of a manga page. Um, people complain when something is accurate. It's like that, but that's the way that they look. That's the way that they act.
yeah. And in the trailer, I mean, he's scowling. He's not smiling and happy. And that's, Guy Gardner's a, kind of a grumpy kind of a guy. And I think most of us, like I'd read a few, like, because in the early days, he wasn't as big a jerk. I think he was a school teacher or a school counselor or
So, and he was also a lawyer,
something.
wasn't
Yeah,
What was he?
something like that. Yeah.
he? Early
But then,
on.
yeah, then he kind of disappeared for a while. When they brought him back,
Yeah.
and especially in Justice League, Giffen and DeMatteis made him this, kind of a jerk. But he was so fun. I mean, they made him. He was a jerk, but he was a fun jerk.
Hmm.
And then of course, when you see him get his comeuppance, when Batman knocks him out with one punch, that is hilarity.
No,
And
did they have him violate Power Girl when she was knocked out? Is that what happened? Because I had read
I
that.
don't.
I saw like some frames of that.
No.
And they had him grab the girl that's like Shazam.
Mary Marvel.
Brown hair.
Yeah.
Mary
So
Marvel.
I was actually just rereading that trade paperback a few nights ago.
Okay.
So yeah, that was like there's a couple of spin-off miniseries based on Keith Giffen's Justice League, formerly known as the Justice League, and I still can't believe it's not the Justice League. So the last one, the characters go to Hades or Hell, and Guy Gardner plays a big role in that story, that miniseries of the trade paperback. There is a scene where Guy Gardner has this new yellow ring, and he knocks out all these villains and some of the superheroes. And yes, Power Girl is knocked unconscious, and he does not violate Power Girl. He's tempted, but he does not do so.
Okay. Very good. Are they ever going to do anything, do you think, with Alan Scott?
That's as good as I can give you. I have no idea.
I like the JSA. I really like the Stargirl series because I think that like the old school characters, that there's like a coolness about them. They talked about Wesley Dodds, even though the stuff that they saw, because I Google it, it's like that's not canon. Yeah, what's the guy's name that does the stuff with ice?
Oh, the Icicle.
Yeah. They're like, Icicle killed Wesley Dodds, and I'm like, did he? And I looked it up, and it's like, no, he like threw himself up of a mountain to so he wouldn't give himself up about Dr. Fate to the demon devil guy.
Yeah, I tend to just go, okay, the comics and the shows are separate. I get it. They're gonna, there's some things you can and can't, you change for whatever reason, but yeah, I enjoyed Stargirl. I thought Stargirl was a quite fun show. I enjoyed that. And yeah, would have liked to have seen it stick around a little longer, but I enjoyed it.
Well, it has been awesome talking with y'all. I really appreciate it. Had a good time.
Yes, this was
share the
fun.
show. I mean, I hope people like it. But yeah, I thought it'd be cool to kind of sit around and get together. I will tell you the thing that I'm dreading. It's not so much of a comics book thing. I really love C.S. Lewis, and Netflix is making a Chronicles of Narnia series, and it's like the bane of my existence because they're having like the Barbie movie lady make it, and she's like, it's going to be so rock and roll, which tells you that she doesn't understand C.S. Lewis. And the issue that I have with it is this. It's a what is this about? And it's not even on the same standard as something else, because C.S. Lewis, and I've read so much of his stuff. I mean, it's like overwhelming, like it's nonfiction stuff, but a bunch of fiction stuff too. C.S. Lewis, you know, he was an atheist. He was a college professor. He gave his heart to the Lord Jesus Christ. You know, J.R.R. Tolkien was friends of his. And he would say, I don't feel like there needs to be more theological books, because when you go to church, you hear all this stuff, and then you go out into the world and you see that every single thing is pitted against what you learned there. He said, I think that it would be good for more people to write fiction and have underlying Christian ideology, you know, even vague, because the Chronicles of Narnia doesn't like bust you in the head with Aslan as Jesus. But Aslan, essentially the lion, is the Jesus character. And he does that. And it's like such a big deal with his stuff, what it is, that, I mean, it's really, it's more awful than wrecking another property, because when you see what he put into it and how much of all there was, that's like he wrote the Intergalactic series, the Ransom series, the trilogy, and it's that way. They go to a planet. It's essentially an unfallen, like perfect world, and people want to go there and they want to corrupt it. The second one, they go to another planet. That's like my favorite of them. I didn't really get into the third one so much, with like the head that was alive in a jar and all kinds of weird like sci-fi stuff. But they had like, this guy was possessed by Satan, and it was like the Garden of Eden. And there was this woman there, and he was trying to corrupt her so he could, you know, be over the entire downfall of Venus. The first one's Mars. And so, I mean, it went through all of this stuff, and, you know, and he's like, well, what am I supposed to do? Why am I even here? How am I even going to combat this thing? And there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes on, but the way that it's written, it's like one of the most amazing fiction books. But he has all of this thought in that, where the guy understands the story, he understands the stakes, and he's put in the situation. So, I mean, C.S. Lewis, just like where his heart was in that, he did the what is it? The Pilgrim's Regress, which is vastly better than the Pilgrim's Progress, which I think is overrated. I get that people love it and all that. I just think that people sell it so high that it like oversells it. But the Pilgrim's Regress was really completely neat, but it's the same type of thing. There's two dragons in it. There's a witch in it later, and she's giving people this stuff that's just making them sicker and sicker, and all kinds of things. People that are named like names that are representative of what they are. The only other fiction thing that he did was the mythology thing, and it was about Cupid and Psy. And he made one difference in that. I know I'm talking all the other ones, but Narnia right now. He made one difference in that, and he had the castle that Cupid had, the palace, to be invisible, which when you sit down and you think about it, I don't think it takes much of an intellect at all. It's like a Christian thing. She's so happy because she's the bride of this person that her friends haven't seen, and she belongs to a kingdom that they haven't seen, and they all think that she's crazy, and they want her to quit it, and they want her to denounce it, but she's more happy than they've ever seen her in their entire life. And that's the only difference, is that he makes it invisible. And he says in the postscript how the actual mythology went, but he has her do all that stuff, go through the afterlife and all of that. And because he really liked Greek mythology, loved Norse mythology too, and could speak Icelandic. But I've read a lot about his life. He talks about grief, about losing his wife, his mom and dad to cancer, and all kinds of things. But the Chronicles of Narnia, you know, there's things in it and nuances in it that if you don't get it, you really shouldn't be the person like taking something that has that much heart and has such a fan base that it's, I mean, insane, crazy, stupid, huge, and say, hey, I'm going to do that. I mean, but it's what people do with Star Wars and all that. But Star Wars didn't have like faith thrown in with it, even though it had Eastern philosophy.
Sure, but also you have to it's not always just that person. Because this has happened to me before. It's sometimes you're hired to do something, and it's we want you to do it, but this is what we want done. And so then, as a creator, you have to go, well, do I take the gig and change this thing? Or, I mean, it happens. I mean, I've been hired before we're going to take this character and we're going to redefine the character, or we're going to change the character, or we're going to. And so sometimes those things are not necessarily the person directing it or the person writing it
Oh,
didn't
much
necessarily.
more venom should be spit at Netflix than the individual that hired the. If you have somebody at a comic book company or what have you, and if they're absolutely destructive to something, at some point it's not that this editor is an idiot. It's the person that's over the thing, because they're allowing for things to go. If I'm the pastor of a church and if I have somebody that's bad in the pulpit, it is a reflection of my leadership. It is a reflection of me. And I know I'm saying church on one end and I'm saying another thing, but whatever you have, if you have a doctor that's doing malpractice and you're over the hospital or what have you, and you've got
Those
somebody
are
doing
wildly
bad,
different. Yeah, it's a wildly different thing from somebody
but if
writing
you've
a
got
movie.
somebody that's doing
But
bad under your administration that's stinking it up, at
but
some
if
point you've got to look up the ladder and say it's that dude that's
if
the
so,
problem.
okay, but if you're that guy okay, and you told them to do this, you don't, because until we
Exactly, it's
know
the
we
administration.
right.
You're
So
saying
but
okay, pass the buck. You know.
no, it's but it's the people that buy the license to these, whether we agree with it or not, have the ability to do what they want with it because they paid the license. And I get where they're coming from,
I
but
think it was $6 million.
right.
By the way,
But it's
which is a sparse nothing amount of
mhm,
money for the entire Chronicles of Narnia series. Not one book,
that's
the entire one. They paid it.
yeah,
They did that several years back.
right. But I
But
mean,
but yeah,
but how they make something, I get people, because people go into it with their own viewpoint, their own guidelines,
and that's the
their own
problem.
agendas.
That's
It's
the
gonna
that's
happen,
that.
but
But
but I'm just saying I understand it. Like there have been times where that's happened, and someone has done something completely different from the source material, and it's become beloved. It happens. Whether we like it or not as viewers
I
is a
I think
different thing. But
I think that things need to be rightfully so judged on a different basis. I had some conversation with somebody, and we were talking about, he was trying to compare like not going to Chick-fil-A over different stuff that they have done. It's a bunch of different things. And versus like DC Comics. And I'm like, you have to understand the history of Chick-fil-A and DC Comics, how diversely different. It doesn't matter that one's a restaurant and one's in DC Comics was a money laundering operation for the mob, and Chick-fil-A was like this bright, shining, churchy light up on a hill by a guy that taught Sunday school for all of his life, that fought tooth. People wanted to fight him because he wanted to stay open on Sunday. And it's one thing for this one to kind of go over here and do stuff like that. And and it's another thing for that one. So in the Bible, you're told that everybody shouldn't want to be a teacher, like a preacher, like a religious person for God, because you will be held to a higher standard. And there's certainly people that need to be held to a higher standard. I hold Chronicles of Narnia to a higher standard than Batman. If somebody wants to
yeah.
bastardize Batman versus the Chronicles of Narnia, based on what it is, based on at the root of what it, and you can feel totally different if you want to. That's okay. You can say I totally disagree with everything that you just
Well,
said.
I just don't think
Based on the
think of
root of what it
entertainment
is,
that way.
it's worse. It's
Yeah.
infinitely worse.
I just don't think of entertainment that way. It's entertainment. There's a
It's more than
it's
entertainment. Chronicles of Narnia is.
well,
I
for that we'll
you
agree to disagree.
yeah,
I
Al.
so I've dealt with Hollywood before. I don't watch these adaptations, these films and television shows based on comics and stuff. I think Hollywood is corrupt. I have no interest in giving Disney, for example, any of my money, and I don't really care about that stuff. And this world is wicked. So I am not surprised that Hollywood, if they get the license to do the Narnia stuff, that they're just going to change everything. Because the world,
Netflix specifically, by the way.
yeah,
Just
the world.
just to clarify.
So Jesus said, you know, if the world hates you, remember it hated me first. And the world is against the things of Christ. So yeah, I don't trust any of these people. I don't think any of these people care about the source material. I don't think any of these people care about their audience.
I know a lot of actors that feel that way. I mean, there's actors that, you know, that they're not corrupt Hollywood. But yeah, I work with Daniel Baldwin. He's one of the directors. He's a totally nice, normal guy. You know.
Well, you were talking about Narnia, and you were talking about C.S. Lewis and how he would put different types of Christian metaphors and stuff in his stories.
Heavily. Well, I mean, they were mild. You know, he put them in there where they were light, but they were there for a reason.
Right. And I was a huge C.S. Lewis fan in the 1990s, Mere Christianity, Screw Tape Letters. I loved all that sort of stuff.
I love Screw Tape Letters. That was the thing he hated writing the most. He said it was the easiest thing for him to write, but to think, like, what would the devil be saying? Are you familiar with that, Bobby?
No, not
The Screw Tape Letters is about a man, and there's an underling devil, and he's corresponding back with his uncle, and it's about wanting to make this man like backslide and go to hell. So he's giving this demon different stuff. He's like, so you can pray for your mother, have the guy pray for his mom, but he needs to remember that look that she always gave him, so he can be bitter about it underneath, and you know, and all this stuff. And it's like, it doesn't matter if he goes down to this church down the way, because that guy just tries to get up and say offensive stuff, and if he goes down to this church down there, because it's not going to change him, and it doesn't really matter. You know, we want him as far from God as he can be, and we want to tell him he's got plenty of time to change his life. So it's all this stuff, and at the end he gets saved, and the demon fells. But it's Wormwood and Screw Tape are corresponding through the letters.
Right.
But they're diabolical.
But C.S. Lewis, he had to put himself into that mindset of these evil characters.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can understand how a Christian man would feel very uncomfortable in that sort of situation.
I love them. Did you read Screw Tape Makes a Toast?
No, I don't even know what that is. I just read.
It's the follow-up to it, where Screw Tape is like, you know, ladies and gentle devils, and he gets up and he speaks in all these big illustrious words the whole time. Screw Tape does.
Oh, all right. Well, the thing I wanted to point out is, like, because like with the sort of being graphic novel series, I mean, that is you know, superhero action adventure and very strong Christian themes in there. But I'm very blunt about sharing the gospel message in those books. Like, I'm, you know, it's good versus evil. It has the gospel message in there. There are some characters that are saved and some certainly who are not saved. Yeah, and I'm creating work that I think that if Christians are looking for a type of entertainment where they're not going to feel like they're compromising God's principles, yeah, they should read The Sword of Eden. So, and it's
No, I like that, and it's a super clean book, and it is really plain. I do know several authors that write, and I say this, and there's people that just kind of, when you say Christian horror, because when you look scripturally, like in the Bible, you do have a real good versus evil. You know, you don't let the bad guy win at the end. Obviously, you know, it's so it is like light versus darkness, and all that, and there is certain things that you would do to make it palatable to you know, that audience, you know, so it's not going to be like an NC-17 movie, but yeah, but they go ahead and they write things like that, and they deal with that, with light versus darkness. I mean, I studied like deliverance ministry and all kinds of things. You know, they have these exorcism movies, but when they're doing an exorcism as opposed to real life, okay, Bobby, man, we'll see you later. I really appreciate you. Thank you
guys
so much.
have a good one. All right, we'll talk later. See you guys.
We'll do it.
meeting you.
When they have these exorcism movies, they never really invoke the name of Jesus Christ. And in real life, Jesus is said a lot when you're, you know, and renunciations is huge, you know, that you renounce the works of the devil and his fruitless deeds, and, you know, and all that. I mean, the person has to want to be free. But I mean, you know, a whole lot of that is done, you know, that you'll ask in the name of Jesus for it to happen, and all that. But yeah, I have a degree in it, and all that. It's not as big of a thing as it sounds like. But I mean, I've taken classes and I've studied stuff and I've read extensively, and all manner of things like that. Of course, I'm a student of the Bible first and foremost, you know, because there's people that get off in wacky places that aren't grounded in the Word of God. But yeah, but no, man, I appreciate you, and I appreciate you sharing your faith. You know, I mean, if we're ashamed of Jesus Christ before men, he's going to be ashamed of us before his Father in heaven. And I'm thankful for what the Lord did for us. I'm glad that we have this time here. You know, this has probably been the churchiest podcast episode, and I'm all about that. for comic stuff. If somebody just says, I just want to go off the rails and just talk about the Lord, it's like, just, man, just, you know, have at it. I like what Angel Studios is doing a lot. You know, they're doing the Chosen series and some other things, and I think that they're doing well overall with film, and I think that they get the audience that they're making it for, you know, whether it's about Abraham or whatever, because it honors the source material that they're doing. And I think that Hollywood misses that. They'll say, we're going to make a Noah's Ark thing, and they make garbage. Or, you know, or we're going to make like a Pharaoh thing, you know, in Egypt and Moses, but they make garbage. And that's just, you know, it's more of a big deal to me because it's Bible. But I mean, whatever it is, honor the source material. You know, I mean, we're going to make a He-Man movie, but we're going to make it in a way that anybody that cares about He-Man isn't going to like it. That's a less big deal, but that's completely stupid.
Right. Here's a couple things. I totally agree with you. Again, I don't trust Hollywood, and I don't think they really care about the original source material, so that's why I don't watch any of this stuff. But we do need more Christian content and entertainment, whether it's, you know, music, comics, film, television, whatever. And I like seeing that some of this stuff is being produced, but especially in comics. Like the last 15 years or so, the mainstream comic book industry has gotten so corrupt and wicked. So, but yeah, if I can give back to God for all the blessings he's poured out in my life and create content that other Christians can enjoy, I'm very happy doing that. And it feels like I'm doing something with a purpose and something that's meaningful. You know, working for Archie and DC and Marvel and stuff, I mean, God has blessed my career, but it's so empty. You know, secular entertainment for me is so empty. I'm not really interested in any of that anymore.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're entertaining somebody, and that's it. And you know, and what Bobby said, and yeah, in some capacity, you know, the stuff in like the Chronicles of Narnia, it's absolutely entertaining. And in the book, the resurrection scene is going to be the biggest point, and they talked about that when they made the initial movie. But when you have something like a movie, the battle scenes are going to be way huger because of the medium that it's showing you. It's showing you a visual battle scene instead of reading it. So it's going to come off different. But yeah, there's things that matter in those stories. And, you know, people that can't grasp what matters would be best to leave it alone. And I don't mean that matters to me or that matters to you. I mean that matters to the man that called himself a sub-creator. That was a J.R.R. Tolkien term too, because God's the creator. But you know, that he made, you know, Narnia, and he made it for a certain thing, and it was supposed to be reflective of certain things. I know that I'm not going to understand William Shakespeare like somebody understood William Shakespeare in the day and age and culture that it was in, and certain nuances and all that. But I mean, if you absolutely just don't get William Shakespeare at all, if you not really just like delved into, don't make it. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Man, God bless you. Thank you again. I'm glad for everybody that came on. I'm going to, where is it? Going to go ahead and pull that up one more time and tell people that they can go and get the Sword of Eden book 1 and 2. And when will number 3 be out? Roughly, ballpark?
This year, I'm working on it. So yeah, if people want to purchase the first 2 graphic novels or the Trump 2024 variant cover, yeah, go to theswordofeden.com.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much. Would love to have you back. I mean, we can talk. I'm thinking about doing this like every week. We're going to see what happens with this. But I said, you know what? I just want to go ahead and give it a go. And honestly, you know, I mean, before it started, I thought I want to open this thing in prayer. This is America. You know, I mean, we've opened ball games in prayer until somebody says that you can't. But I still know people that do. And I live in Tennessee. You know, I mean, they have a moment of silence in school. So it's not a moment to pray. It's a moment of silence. But I mean, you know, it's almost like Christian schools, even when they aren't. You know, it's open and concealed carry. It's at church and stuff isn't weird down here. When I grew up, I was born in Toledo, Ohio, and so I lived in the suburbs of Sylvania. My dad worked at General Motors, and it was like weird in Toledo to people if you like had like Christian assemblage, like, you know, cross or whatever on your like trapper keeper or whatnot. But you're just like, if you're down south, that's just totally normal. My mom's from Harlan County, Kentucky, and my dad's from Pulaski, Tennessee. So I mean, I when I started going to church, going to school, I had a drawl. I also stuttered really bad, so, so nobody could understand me. But yeah, it's just a different culture. It's a different world. I was raised teething on a pew. That's normal for me. That's life for me. I loved it. My mom said that she knew I was always going to be a preacher. I've pastored churches and stuff. As a little baby, I would like to listen to the preacher preach. I mean, you know when somebody's got something like hardwired into them. And she wasn't supposed to be able to have any kids. And I wasn't meaning to go into like a testimony or whatever, but she wasn't supposed to be able to have any kids. My dad had had a vasectomy reversal, and that wasn't like it is now. And she prayed. She went through like every prayer line praying that she could have a baby. You know, had my older sister, you know, years and years before. She's 10 years older than me. And I mean, she went there, and I don't know if you know who T.L. Lowry is or not. He's like a fireball preacher, like healer person in the Church of God Cleveland Assembly. He was one of these guys that screamed a lot, so he sounded like he had throat cancer. You know, that type of preacher. You know, talk like that. You know, and she said she went up into to the line there at that big church that they had, and he was up there, and she said, you know, the Holy Ghost came all over her. She said it was like lightning went all through her body. And she started feeling sick, you know, after a while, you know. But I mean, she had fasted, she had prayed, she sat in sackcloth and like ashes in the backyard. She poured ashes over her head in the backyard. I'm like super hardcore, and I get it from my mother.
Mhm.
but she said she's feeling sick, and she went to the doctor and thought she must have the flu or something. And he said, well, it's not the flu, you're pregnant.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, that was the story of early Ben Blankenship. And you know, I'd have things go on in my life, and she would say, God didn't give me this baby for this thing to be wrong with him. And you know, I was healed of epilepsy at 14 years old. Her and the preacher, I had a grand mal seizure, and first time ever. And they were there in the room with me. Pastor Ed Dobson, he was an outstanding man. He pastored a church and worked at Nabisco. And we went to praying, and you know, like praying like you meant like the floor could hear you. You were like elevated voices, and God healed me right then and there. And the doctors ran their test, and they said, I don't understand this. And I mean, and that's not weird for me. You know, I went into the hospital and prayed for this lady about a year ago that was like dying. And you know, you'll have this doctor, and he's an unbeliever. He's not used to that. For me, that's totally normal, because I know that when I pray that God's going to hear me. and I've seen so many people healed. I've seen people like beating their crutches on the altar, you know, shouting all over the front of the church or whatever, you know, getting healed of something. I mean, that's not weird to me. It may be to somebody else, but that's not weird to me. And anyway, yeah, she got healed. What was so touching to me, because you'd have to understand, I don't want to go through a big thing about like how hard things have been in ministry with other preachers and different kinds of people, but she's going down, and I absolutely wouldn't name her name, but she's going down to a church, and you know, there's a pastor there, and they're doing baptisms and all that. And the preacher that she said she had confidence in was me. And she said to my sister, she said, it would mean a lot if Ben would baptize me, because I know that he's real. I mean, it just makes you want to cry, because you've got things like that happen, and you know, it's just like God saying, see, because things aggravate you so much in ministry when they don't go the way that they should go. You know, you get passed over and all kinds of stuff. You know how life is. And I mean, it really touched my heart. And I said, I would be so honored to do that. And I'm some way about like doing baptisms and all that, because I'm afraid that people are insincere. You know what I mean? and you don't just want to go out and baptize, and it's like, and then a week later they're just out living some way. And I know that that's not the way that I should be thinking, but it aggravates me. And I'm the same way about like weddings. You know, it's like, how serious are they about this commitment that they're making before God? And it aggravates me, because I think covenant things are a big. I think you should try, you know. But yeah, man, God bless you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Y'all go ahead and check that out, Sword of Eden. Thank you for everything that you said. It's a blessing, man. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May his face shine down upon you.
You too. Well, God bless you guys, and yeah, put your faith and trust in the Savior, Christ Jesus. And the world's terrible, so he's the name that is the only name that saves.
Yeah, but I mean, you've read the end of the book just like me, and it doesn't end with an "oh me," but with an "amen." So it's just it's good to be on the winning side.
As long as we're on God's side.
That's it.